For years, China's expansive market has promised immense opportunities, drawing in companies from around the world eager to tap into its huge consumer base. However, as the economic landscape shifts, foreign businesses are increasingly finding themselves in a precarious position. They are drawn in by the prospect of substantial profits, but face immense pressure from the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, to comply with strict regulations here. This raises a pivotal question. Is the Chinese Communist Party on the right track with its move to control the presence of foreign businesses in China? Or is it a double-edged sword that causes damage to its own economy? But before we start, please like and subscribe to our channel, Facts About China. Your support is a great motivation for us. The Chinese authority seems essentially unable to escape its own predicament. China has made no secret of its claim that it needs foreign investment to fund the growth of its economy and bring in much-needed business and technological expertise. Therefore, Chinese policymakers encourage companies from other parts of the world to establish operations within China or invest in China in various ways. However, the actions of the Chinese Communist Party itself have hindered these investment flows. One of the primary mechanisms through which the Chinese Communist Party exerts pressure on foreign companies is through regulatory and legal frameworks. The Chinese government has established a myriad of regulations that foreign companies must navigate to operate within the country. These regulations often require companies to form joint ventures with local firms, transfer technology, and adhere to strict data localization laws. Failure to comply with these regulations can result in severe penalties, including fines, restrictions on market access, and even expulsion from the Chinese market. This regulatory environment creates a significant burden for foreign companies, forcing them to make concessions that can undermine their competitive advantage and long-term viability. Other obstructionist actions from China to foreign enterprises include Chinese police raids on foreign companies' facilities in China, often under the guise of weak and dubious pretexts or veiled political purposes. There is no doubt that human rights advocates around the world will speak out against these actions. The latest incident occurred at the Foxconn factory in Zhengzhou, Henan province. This Taiwanese-owned company produces many contract products for the American company Apple. This Foxconn factory in mainland China is crucial to Apple's iPhone global supply chain, so it is known as the Five-Phone City. Just last month, the Chinese regime sent police into the factory and arrested 4 employees on vague charges. The police suddenly entered the factory and took away 4 employees. On the surface, these did not seem to affect the normal production of the Foxconn factory. Nonetheless, the threat posed by an increasing number of serious incidents will still have a significant impact on the business decisions of foreign companies investing under the rule of the Communist Party of China. Taiwanese government agencies will certainly take this matter seriously. Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council described the arrests and charges as rather bizarre. Therefore, Taipei issued a warning for Taiwanese citizens traveling to the mainland in June this year, asking people to avoid all non-essential travel to mainland China. For obvious reasons, Taiwan is particularly sensitive to such actions. Last year, Foxconn's business in China faced unreasonable investigations by the Chinese Communist authorities. The basis of the investigation was also vague, but it was indeed inseparable from the situation after Foxconn founder Terry Gou failed to run for the Taiwanese presidency. What is even more worrying is that the Chinese Communist regime has also stated that it will specifically target Taiwanese citizens it considers Taiwan independence diehards. The Chinese government claims that such illegal behavior is punishable by death. Against this background, it is not surprising that Taiwanese companies have begun to reduce their once close ties with Chinese companies. Investment flows from Taiwan companies to mainland China have been declining since 2010. Last year alone, these investment flows were down nearly 40% from 2022 levels. Taiwanese companies invested only US $4.17 billion in mainland China last year, less than 1/3 of 2018. These huge funds did not flow to mainland China, but instead flowed to Southeast Asia, especially Singapore, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. These countries currently receive about 40% of Taiwan's investment outflows, which exceeds flows to mainland China. Among them, investment by Taiwanese companies in Vietnam has increased fourfold, especially in the field of high-tech electronic products such as electronic components and semiconductors that are most valued by the Chinese Communist regime. Not only are Taiwanese companies particularly sensitive to the Chinese Communist Party's repressive policies, Beijing's coercive behavior also affects the decisions of many companies elsewhere in the world. After all, the American company Apple, which dominates the global business community, is also vulnerable to the negative impact of the arrests at Foxconn's Zhengzhou factory. The impact of these pressures can be seen across various sectors, with the technology industry providing some of the most striking examples. Giant techs like Google and Microsoft have all faced significant challenges in navigating the Chinese market. These companies have had to make difficult decisions, such as complying with stringent data localization laws and censoring content to align with Chinese Communist Party directives. While these actions may secure short-term market access, they often come at the expense of the company's broader strategic goals and ethical standards. Moreover, the technology transfers and joint ventures required by Chinese regulations can erode the competitive edge of these companies, ultimately harming their long-term prospects. In addition, LinkedIn, now owned by Microsoft, the careers networking service, closed its Chinese site. Senior Vice President Mohawk Shroff wrote, "We're facing a significantly more challenging operating environment and greater compliance requirements in China." What's more, anonymous sources stated that HP, an American multinational information technology company headquartered in Palo Alto, California, was also planning to relocate 30% of its notebook production away from China. The reasoning behind both moves was to avoid the punishing U.S. tariffs on tech products produced in the People's Republic for the U.S. market. In 2021, it was also reported that HP had sold its Chinese laser printer production operation to Taiwanese company Foxconn. HP has also started surveying suppliers to establish the feasibility of moving its production and assembly away from China. Besides, the manufacturing and trade sectors also illustrate the complex dynamics at play. Many foreign manufacturers have established operations in China to take advantage of lower labor costs and access to the Chinese market. However, these companies often find themselves subject to Chinese Communist Party policies that prioritize domestic firms and industries. For example, the Chinese Communist Party's Made in China 2025 initiative aims to reduce China's dependence on foreign technology and promote domestic innovation. This policy has led to increased support for Chinese companies and heightened competition for foreign manufacturers. As a result, foreign companies may face declining market share and profitability even as they continue to invest heavily in their Chinese operations. It is a fact that in recent years, China's blatant and aggressive crackdown on foreign investors seems to be further pushing these foreign businesses to leave the country and seek other countries. In April last year, the Chinese Communist authorities raided 3 American consulting firms, Bain & Company, Mintz Group, and Capvision. Chinese authorities have long been dissatisfied with these companies' collection of Chinese business and financial information. They detained 2 employees of Messi Minxi Group and eventually fined the company the equivalent of $1.05 million for illegally collecting data. Since these companies collect information to advise U.S. companies and others around the world on investing in China, this blocking behavior directly runs counter to the regime's need for foreign investment flows, unless Beijing's ideologues believe investors should be blind to putting money at risk. Of course, it's not just American and Taiwanese companies that are affected. In October 2023, the Chinese Communist authorities arrested an executive of Japan's Astellas Pharma Inc. on espionage charges, but he was released in March this year. Chinese authorities also detained an executive and two former employees of London-based WPP, one of the world's largest advertising companies. Beijing also jailed an Australian journalist for 3 years. Some of these arrests may have legal or national security reasons that cannot be challenged by the outside world. If this were the case, the Chinese government would have to do little to explain the legality and legitimacy of these arrests. At the same time, the widespread feeling of being targeted among foreign-funded businesses has led to a decrease in much-needed foreign investment in the Chinese economy. To be sure, the shift in foreign investment intentions is most evident in the trade data. For example, in 2023, U.S. imports of smartphones from China fell by about 10%, while imports of laptops fell by 30%. This is the most recent period for which complete statistics are available. By contrast, U.S. imports from India and China from Vietnam both quadrupled, albeit from a low starting point. Data for Europe are incomplete, but the Berlin report shows that German imports from China have fallen by about 13% over the past year. Preliminary reports suggest that the United States may have surpassed China as an exporter of German products, despite the long-standing development of Sino-German trade relations. Data on Japan and South Korea is still limited, but the decline in exports to China is likely a reflection of their reluctance to use China's assembly facilities, which have been the main channel for Japanese and South Korean exports. More remarkably, several major Japanese companies have broken ties with China and withdrawn all their resources from the country. In July, Nippon Steel Corporation said it was exiting its joint venture in China. Mitsubishi Motors Corporation stopped its China operations indefinitely last year, a casualty of slumping car sales and China's rapid shift to electric vehicles. Almost half of Japanese firms in China polled in a recent survey said they won't spend more or will cut investment this year. Companies listed rising wages, falling prices, and geopolitics as the biggest issues they faced. Robert Ward, Director of Geoeconomics and Strategy at the International Institute for Strategic Studies in London, said, "Now, Japan's peak economic engagement with China is gone. The hurdles ranged from the U.S.-China tech competition to rising tensions in the Taiwan Strait." He highlighted that geopolitics is a significant factor in the changing attitudes. To be honest, the slow-motion rupture threatens an economic bond that dates back more than 4 decades, when Japan started to extend trillions of yen in development assistance to China by way of low-interest loans. Commerce and trade have been a pillar of an otherwise contentious relationship between the two Asian giants, summed up among academics by the catchphrase, "hot business, cold politics." This time, the chill of geopolitical winds is proving hard to contain. New foreign direct investment is on track to stagnate near 2023's multi-year low after volumes in the first quarter fell to the lowest since 2016. It's a turnaround for Japanese companies that had built up an FDI stock of almost $130 billion in China through the end of last year. This is a turnaround from previous periods of bilateral tension, which didn't affect investment much. Even in 2010 to 2012, when the territorial dispute between the two sides was hot and Beijing temporarily blocked shipments of rare earth to Japan, companies still increased their stock of investment by an average of 13% each year. China seems concerned about the decline. In addition, Samsung Electronics, a giant South Korean tech turning its back on China, has announced it will invest $230 billion to build 5 chip factories across South Korea. The company shut its remaining smartphone factory in China in 2019, reportedly turning the city where it was based into a ghost town. Further closures were announced in 2020, with Samsung ceasing production at its last Chinese PC plant, instead moving operations to Vietnam. In conclusion, the Chinese Communist Party's aggressive regulatory environment and coercive tactics have created a challenging landscape for foreign companies operating in China. While the CCP seeks to bolster its economy through foreign investment, its actions often drive these businesses away, leading to a paradoxical situation where the very policies intended to protect domestic interests inadvertently harm the national economy. The increasing trend of foreign companies, including major players like Foxconn and Samsung, relocating their operations to more favorable environments underscores the growing discontent with the Chinese Communist Party's heavy-handed approach. As these companies shift their investments to Southeast Asia and beyond, the long-term implications for China's economic growth become increasingly concerning. The ongoing geopolitical tensions and the CCP's stringent policies not only jeopardize foreign investment, but also threaten to stifle innovation and competitiveness within China itself. We've reached the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you found our content engaging, a thumbs up and sharing it with your loved ones would be much appreciated. Make sure to subscribe to Facts About China and turn on the notification bell for updates on our latest videos. Your support is everything to us. Until next time, take care and goodbye.